Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're going to be returning to War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is going to be a play-by-email game that we're going to be playing with XTRG, and we're on to, I think it's December 12th, currently in the war. Now I've already seen the combat results, but I know in my last episode I haven't shown these the most up-to-date results. If you've been following XTRG's series, you will have already seen these. If not, then enjoy, because this is going to be a very big turn. Next turn, likewise, will also be big, either for the better or for the worse, depending on your point of view. But why don't we just kind of skip all the chit-chat and all the hubbub, and let's just jump in to see the combat results that XTRG sent over. I don't know why that didn't work before, but... all right, let's jump in here to the combat results of what will be a very big turn, I think. All right, so I'm just gonna, there we go. So December 10th, or December 11th, 1941, a date which may live in infamy for the Imperial Japanese Navy, but we'll find out soon why. So we're jumping through all the reaction phases. It's nighttime. He's unloading troops in the Philippines still. We've sighted some convoys sort of in wherever that place is. Submarines doing their job, trying to torpedo Japanese ships, but getting sort of intercepted by enemy surface vessels. We have some patrol boats that are going to engage a surface task force of his off the Philippines. Oh my god. The combat results are so damn loud, I think I'm losing my hearing. Long story short, that fight didn't go well for us. A couple of ships sunk. No damage done to him. Additionally, more submarines in the Philippines engaging his invasion force of the southeast corner of the island of Luzon. More surface action occurring, I believe, or will be occurring with our patrol boats. But that's not the star of this turn. The star of this turn is coming up very soon. It's a big event that I'm excited to... I didn't actually watch through the combat last time. I just saw the results, so... yeah, a lot of stuff. By the way, my submarines suck right now. 1, the commanders suck. 2, the ships suck. 3, the torpedoes suck. The only boats that are worth even hoping for a hit with are the S-boats. And I don't have very many of them. Meanwhile, you can see here XTRG landed on Guam finally. That's usually a turn 1 conquest for the Japanese, but we're in 5 turns or so, and he's just landing there. So you can see he's losing some casualties to landing difficulties, but we don't really have much in the way of soldiers there, so pretty sure Guam falls this turn. He's continuing to strengthen his position in the Philippines, and this is all occurring in this first 12-hour pulse phase. Okay, so more amphibious landings occurring. So we're 12 hours into the turn. It's no longer nighttime. It's now daylight. And now we're getting to air operations, which is when the fun starts, right? So we get a bunch of a bunch of aircraft sighting convoys, task forces, things like that. So the first part of the air phase is basically your recon aircraft going out and doing their job, and then the second phase is, all right, we've spotted enemy aircraft, or enemy ships, or we've sort of prepared for our raids. Why don't we go ahead and actually launch our raids against the enemy? So you can see here the Japanese have a bunch of raids occurring in the morning in China on various ground targets that I'm not paying too much attention to right now. You can see here the interior of China. But this is when things start getting interesting. We've got some Dutch bombers, some 133 WH-3s, whatever the hell those things are. I think they might be like a Dutch version of the Hudson, which is not a very good bomber. But you can see here 6 of them are attacking Mersing. There are 7 Japanese Oscars overhead, and they're trying to intercept these bombers. Now they are suffering some damage, actually, from the defensive fire from these bombers. But the bombers are, in general, going to be in trouble because we don't have any fighter escorts with them. And the Japanese are going to shoot down or drive off the entire engagement before they're able to close with their target at Mersing. Meanwhile, we've got 16 Buffaloes escorting 6 Hudsons against a Japanese convoy out here to the east, which appears to have a troop transport, which is likely bringing in large numbers of Japanese soldiers. Again, you can see here some Blenheims coming in against another convoy up here to the north, just to the east of Kutan. I'm assuming that's another landing force that he's bringing in, probably to Mersing, which is where I'm worried is the main effort that he's going to send against us. Now you can see a large raid of 20 torpedo bombers forming up to go after the enemy naval vessels at Mersing. His cap is decreased down to 3 fighters after the initial raids. We have 9 Buffaloes coming in as well. So our Buffaloes are, I guess, are they... I'm trying to see it and see who is diving on who. I think our Buffaloes are coming in at 15,000 feet. I guess he's diving on me, which is giving him an advantage. So we lost several Buffaloes to enemy fighters, but all 20 of our torpedo bombers made it through to the Japanese ship convoy. And you can see here we just put a torpedo in an APD, which is basically like a troop transport destroyer. So that's good. That ship can probably only take 1 torpedo without sinking. And you can see our torpedoes are attacking various other warships here. Some of them are dropping bombs. I don't know why our ships would be dropping bombs. Looks like we got a hit there on a light cruiser with no damage. But then a sweep of 4 wildebeests come in on Haruna, and it looks like they just put a torpedo into the Japanese battleship Haruna. So that initial attack included 21 torpedo bombers, swordfishes, and wildebeests. We put 1 torpedo into an armored transport, essentially a destroyer transport, troop transport, and sank it. And we put 2 torpedoes. I only saw 1 report, but it said 2 torpedo hits on Haruna. Meanwhile, the Japanese lost some casualties of the troops that were on that destroyer. Looks like all of our ships were attacking with torpedoes, so maybe the hit but no explosion was the other torpedo on Haruna. Let's see here. Looks like his cap altitude is 20,000 feet. Scrambling fighters to 10,000, I guess? I'm not sure. Maybe that's the altitude my aircraft were coming in. But we've got another raid, this one unescorted, but essentially his cap has already been exhausted. So we've got some Blenheims coming in, and we've got some additional wildebeests coming in on the Japanese warships. And you can see here more torpedo damage to the Haruna, which is great to see. Blenheims coming in, dropping bombs. They suck against enemy surface ships. It's kind of a waste to have them do anything there. And then we've also got some torpedoes going into this Japanese cargo ship. So not a troop transport, it's an AK, it's a cargo ship. So you can see here that we're doing some damage there. It looks like we sank the troop transport. We put 2 more torpedoes into Haruna. It's now on fire and suffering heavy damage. And we put 2 torpedoes into the Zinzan Maru, a cargo ship, and it was sunk. So the Japanese have now lost 2 ships, a destroyer transport and a cargo ship. 228 Japanese casualties, 3 squads destroyed, 7 non-combat squads destroyed in that ship sinking, as well as a battleship with very heavy damage. We also sighted the Congo, but we didn't, I guess we didn't attack it, or we didn't get any torpedoes on it. We also tried to torpedo the heavy cruiser Suzoya, but also no damage there. So you can see here, our wildebeests launched their torpedoes at 200 feet. I need to double check what their actual attack altitude was. I'm assuming they dived down to attack. But yeah, lost a couple more aircraft to either damage or flak. And we've got another raid coming in, this one with Whirlways. Only 4 of them are coming in on Japanese heavy cruisers, and they dropped their bombs to no avail, dropping 100-pound bombs from 15,000 feet. The Whirlway's kind of a shitty aircraft. So that was the morning there. We put 4 torpedoes into Haruna, and now you can see here heavy air engagements again over Manila. Some 51 bombers are attacking Manila itself, and we've only got a handful of P-40s. Actually, we've got over 10 up there, but at the end of the day, it was still far too strong of a cover. So we actually scrambled 23 P-40 Warhawks. It's claiming we lost 8 of those, plus a P-26. So that's pretty heavy losses for only 1-0 destroyed. But I do think we at least broke the attack up. It didn't seem to do too much damage. Another wave comes in, and all we had was P-26s to scramble. All he had was 6 bombers coming in. Only a handful of hits on the runway, though. Some Sallies coming in as well. By this point, our cap is gone. It looks like they're bombing our ground forces there. And I'm not sure if we're into the PM phase of air combat yet or not. Does look like we are. Now he's got 12 Oscars up over Mersing here in the afternoon. Some Oscar 1A or 1Bs and 1As. We've got a handful of Buffaloes coming in, and we lost some of those. It looks like these guys were scrambling at 20,000 feet. Scrambling fighters between 0 and 20,000. Rate is overhead. Yeah. Okay, some additional Hudsons going after these ships that are further out. I don't think we do any damage there. Nope. Some Swordfish and Wildebeests trying to get in here again. Now he has some fighters intercepting them, and they get shot up pretty bad. We lost a couple Swordfish and a few Wildebeests. 4 more come in, and it looks like we got a torpedo hit on the Congo now. So the Haruna suffered 4 torpedo hits. The Congo has now suffered 1 torpedo hit. We lost 5 torpedo bombers, 5 torpedo bombers that turn. But for a torpedo hit into the Congo, that's a pretty big deal. Another raid, this one of 10 more Wildebeests coming in. These guys got to be doing multiple strikes, because I only have 30 torpedo bombers there. So maybe because the range is so short, they returned and then they kind of went back out again. I'm not sure. But you can see here, not as effective this time out. No torpedoes on that raid at all. More Blenheims. More nothing. Weirways. Can't do jack. We got 8 B-17s attacking Apari. He's scrambling some nates against them. And they're going to do some damage. My bombers aren't going to be anywhere near as effective as last turn. I think last turn I inflicted over 100 casualties. This turn only 10. With all of our bombers suffering varying degrees of damage. So that'll probably stop our raids against the Japanese soldiers in the Philippines, mainly because I don't want to get my B-17s destroyed at this stage. Okay. We claimed a torpedo into a DMSW, so a destroyer minesweeper. Looks like multiple torpedoes. I would think that thing's going to sink. 2 torpedoes into a destroyer minesweeper on fire and heavy damage. I mean, I would have preferred your torpedoes go into a cargo ship than a DMS, but whatever. I'm assuming that ship will sink if those reports are accurate. One of the things you always have to factor in with these results, however, is the game gives you imperfect information. So sometimes you'll report, and very often submarines will do this because they don't have a very good way of reporting damage or citing damage. But very often your fog of war will give you inaccurate results, either identifying ships as carriers when maybe they're only cargo ships, or battleships as cruisers, or cruisers as battleships, but also as being hit by bombs and things like that did no damage. You can see here he's landing some troops on Canton Island, which is kind of concerning. It looks like he's trying to get astride our supply line to Australia. So we'll have to think about how we want to counter that. Meanwhile, he is landing soldiers at Mersing. You can see here he's got cruisers bombarding the coastal forts and soldiers there. I don't know if... Let's see here. They inflicted some 22 casualties. His troops lost 27 going ashore. It looks like the Kumino, Mogami, Takao, Junzitsu, Sendai, a bunch of destroyers. He must have had them go into close range. I don't see any of the battleships actually laying down fire. I'm going to assume that's because the battleships were damaged enough that they didn't feel safe coming in close, because you do see the Haruna is in this task force. It just didn't participate in the bombardment. So that's interesting. I'm guessing that's why they didn't do as much damage as they probably could have. That's good. That I think that lends credence to the fact that the 4 torpedoes probably hurt Haruna pretty badly. Even if she isn't sunk, she's probably out of the war at least a year. But my guess is she will sink. Japanese damage control is not very good in this game. Let's see here. But yeah, they've got a bunch of heavy cruisers there. And They're unloading over Mersing still. Honestly, I would have rathered my torpedo bombers attack the Japanese troop convoys that I'm assuming are to the east, but... Alright, meanwhile, moving to the ground phase in Hawaii, Central China, sorry. We have a corps attacking there. 1-to-1 assault odds. Or are the Japanese attacking? Oh, the Japanese are attacking. Oh, we took this base last turn. And I think he's... Or no, maybe we didn't. I'm trying to remember. The Japanese launched a deliberate attack against our soldiers there, inflicted slightly heavier casualties than we did. But we still held the ground. We didn't get pushed back. Meanwhile, the Japanese attacked at Hong Kong. We hung on to Hong Kong for another day, but they did reduce the forts to 2, so my guess is the Japanese lost about 1,000 men to our 900. So we inflicted a bloody nose on him, but I'm going to guess that the Japanese soldiers will either take Hong Kong on December 12th or the 13th at the latest. A bombardment attack in the north. We had a couple of units up there that we ordered bombardment attacks. Vigan and Luzon falls. There were no American troops there to oppose the opposition. Canton Island, on the other hand, falls to the Japanese as well, launching a shock attack here. So that island was invaded and fell. And there was a bombardment attack at Mersing. You can see here we've got a brigade of troops opposing whatever he got ashore, which I don't think is very many soldiers, because we sank 2 ships that had troops on them. We continued the attack at Yichang. You can see here the 68th Corps and the 67th Corps were badly shot up, and we took a lot more casualties again, another 3,300, so about almost 10,000 casualties in the fighting in around Yichang the last 2 days. But what I will say is we had 2-to-1 odds, so yesterday we had 1-to-1 odds, I think. Today we have 2-to-1 odds, and we reduced the fort from a level 2 to a level 0, which means he will get no defensive fort bonus next time we attack, unless he rebuilds them. It might be a little bit of a risk, but I'm thinking him losing 2 fort levels is probably worth us continuing the attack. Okay, no, he attacked here, and now we're counterattacking at Hawaiian with a corps of our own. So his troops attacked, they didn't break through. Our troops then counterattacked with a shock attack, and drove him back with a 5-to-1 odds level. Didn't even reduce the fort. Looks like we kept the fort in place. We lost 9 casualties. The Japanese lost over 1,000. The casualties in land combat's a little bit weird. Like, I'm sure we would have lost more than 9 men, and or them less than 1,000, but in any event, that's the result. Bombardment up north near Pao Tao, and bombardment wherever this place is. And I think that's going to do it for the turn. So we'll... Ilo expands fortifications. Singapore expands fortifications. I think we're going to get kicked out of the game. We'll jump back in here in a second. I have already issued most of my orders for this turn. I know XTRG does a lot of his issuing of orders on stream. I prefer to do it off stream rather than make you guys watch 2 hours. I do enjoy the interaction and the back and forth, but I kind of like my videos to be more of like, if you don't want to sit through everything, I'll do a lot of my turn while you're not looking. And then you can kind of have more of a bite-sized view, because this is a very deep game. But if you want the full War in the Pacific experience, check out XTRG's videos on the same play-by-email series, because his videos go into a lot more depth. All right. Let's take a look over here. So first things first, let's go to the intelligence report. Let's take a look at ships sunk, and let's take a look at last turn. Last turn? So... the game is telling us the following was all sunk last turn. It's telling us the Haruna was sunk near Mersing, so I don't know if that's true or not. It's just what the game is telling me. Now, this will adjust over time. If this isn't true, then this will go away. If it is true, then it'll stay there. So probably in 30 or 60 days, we'll know for sure if we haven't sighted it. But I'm not sure if it sank or not, because it was still there during the bombardment, so we'll see. In any event, our crews are reporting that it was sunk. The Zanzan Maru is also being reported as sunk by our aircraft. That one we saw go down. That one we actually had the combat result that said ship is sunk. So the odds of this actually sinking are better, because basically means our aircraft, while they were in the air there, they saw it go under. The Haruna we didn't see go under while our aircraft were there. They're just reporting afterwards that they think it sunk. A midget submarine, the HA-22, was sunk near Pearl Harbor. So that was, again, I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing that occur, but there was one that took a lot of damage, so maybe. The APD Aoi took a torpedo. I'm sure that sank. An APD taking a single torpedo, that thing's going to sink. The W9 also took 2 torpedoes from our subs near Vegan, so that was also reported as sunk. I believe that one as well. And then we lost 3 PT boats last turn near Vegan. You can see the point value of the Haruna is huge, 182 points. Capital ships give you huge benefits in terms of points, so that's worth keeping in mind. Now, if we take a look at aircraft losses, this was not a good turn for the Allies in general. We lost 12 P-40 Warhawks over the Philippines. We lost 9 Wildebeests attacking his shipping. We lost 6 Swordfish, so we lost 15 Torpedo Bombers attacking Mersing. Although, if we really did sink a battleship, it's well worth it. And we also lost 4 Buffalo fighter aircraft that were escorting them. 3 of them were ops losses, so they were damaged by the Japanese, and they kind of got back to base, but were lost there. The Japanese lost 3 Oscars in the same operations, 2 of those as ops losses, so we don't know if their crew survived. They only lost 2 Zeros. We lost 3 P-36s. They lost some KIs as operational losses, and they lost 1 C-5M2 Babs to flak. Overall, 36 Allied aircraft lost against 9 Japanese aircraft claimed. This top pilots, none of our top pilots who are in the Philippines were actually wounded or killed or anything like that, despite the heavy losses in that theater, so that's interesting. We've lost a total of 40 pilots killed in the campaign, 13 today, 8 wounded in action today, 39 in the campaign. No aces yet in our Air Force yet. And I'm kind of curious if George Bush is in this game or not, but we'll have to wait till later in the war to see. I know some of these pilots are real, but I don't know who is and who isn't. Okay, so with that being said, I think that probably about does it for this part of the screen. Let's take a look at what my plan is for dealing with his landing at Mersing. He obviously got troops ashore. We're seeing 1,300 soldiers with 5 guns. To oppose them, we've got a full brigade, almost at full strength. It's pretty close. It is the 22nd Australian Brigade. So those guys have reasonably good odds against what the Japanese have ashore right now. They also have 1 fortification. They're building another, but it'll never get there. But that fortification should make them more than a match for anything the Japanese currently have ashore. I really don't think he had much in the way of soldiers ashore yet. Maybe a battalion, maybe even a brigade worth, but not enough to overwhelm us. What I'm worried about is these ships here to the east. We've got 2 convoys that we're reporting seeing southwest here that are probably in reach of Mersing within 1 turn. So they'll probably arrive this turn. Unless they're moving really slow or they're really slow shipping and he doesn't have them on combat speed. But if he has on combat speed, they'll either get here or they'll get here. So odds are he's going to have them get to Mersing this turn. He also has another convoy up here with tankers, according to what ship's sightings we have, moving southwest as well. They probably won't make it this turn, I don't think, but maybe. I could be wrong. So that's the situation at Mersing. We have a task force that's ready to counter them. It is a strong task force. Doesn't have 5 or 6 heavy cruisers like what we saw. It doesn't have 2. His task force, when healthy, would have clobbered this thing. But if Haruna is really sunk and he's down to 1 battleship and 5 or 6 cruisers, then we've got a better chance. We've got the Prince of Wales, which is a fine battleship. It can make 28 knots. It's a fast battleship, one of the few early fast battleships in this theater. And we've got the Repulse, a 28-knot battleship, or battle cruiser, so less armor, but still very good. In addition to that, we have the USS Houston, which withdrew from the Philippines. We've got 5 light cruisers, some of them British. I think the Dragon is British, and then some of them Dutch, from the Dutch East Indies. And then we've got, 9 destroyers down here? Or is it 7 destroyers? Our total task force is 15 ships. 15 ships, 2 battleships, 6 cruisers, and 7 destroyers. And my plan with this task force is to race these guys north and either finish off and sink Haruna or whatever the remaining Japanese surface vessels are. They have a lot of heavy cruisers. The Japanese are very good at night combat. Our ships are not as good at night combat. But on the plus side, the Prince of Wales is a modern battleship. It was built in like 1939 or whatever. It went into service in 1940, I think it was. It has radar. It has air search and surface search radar, which means that they'll be able to pick up enemy aircraft coming in from a ways away, and they'll also be able to pick up enemy ships up to 30,000 yards away. So actually their radar has shorter range than their guns in theory, but that is what it is. Does the Repulse have radar? Yes, the Repulse also has radar. So the Repulse and the Prince of Wales both have radar. The Houston does not. I don't know if any other ships in this task force have radar or not, but in any event, we've got 2 ships with radar. Wow, the Jupiter-class destroyers. Wow, the British ships all seem to have radar, or at least a lot of them do. That Jupiter-class destroyer, the Prince of Wales. So we've got the Dragon class also has radar. So we've got a fair amount of radar. Do some of these guys not have torpedoes? How is that even possible? Come on, Dutch. You should have... All you've got is 4cm and 15cm guns. You've got no torpedoes on these damn light cruisers. Well, what good are these light cruisers then? They're not even going to... All they're going to be able to do is maybe knock up a few Japanese destroyers. Whatever. They'll be good enough against troop transports if they run into them. British destroyers have torpedoes. I kind of wish I had sallied more of my destroyers down here from the south, but it is what it is. In addition to that, we've got a task force of 3 destroyers sprinting west from the north coast of Borneo, hopefully to intercept some enemy ships around here. They can't quite make it to Mersing with their fuel at the current speed, but they'll be sprinting this way. They may also attract enemy aircraft attention and maybe lure them into the wrong targets. We've also ordered a couple of destroyers which are at Singapore to race north as well. There are 2 destroyers at Singapore. Neither of them is at 100%, the ISIS and the Encounter. Neither of these guys have radar, so they don't have radar, so they're not going to be as good at detecting the enemy. But they do have torpedoes, and they're going to be sprinting north as well. They'll probably arrive first, and maybe, if they survive long enough, maybe we'll draw some Japanese air cover. These guys also don't have radar, so no radar on these destroyers. So the only radar is in, I guess, what is our souped-up Force Z. Now, the plan with Force Z here is move them north. They can move 6 hexes. My hope, the game is really divided into 2 turns, so my hope is they can get to Mersing before sunlight comes, and then they can retreat back toward Pallenberg before before the end of the turn. So they're going to move north to Mersing, then they're going to withdraw. They're set to retirement allowed. So basically they'll sprint north, they'll engage, they're set to not react. I don't want them running off to the east or something on their own. Additionally, they've got a very aggressive commander. The commander is Rear Admiral Arthur Palliser, who has an aggression level of 81, which means he may just attack and go wherever he wants anyway, even though our react orders are set pretty strictly. He may exercise his own judgment. In addition to that, because I know he's probably going to have a large number of bombers that are going to come against me, I've set up a few countermeasures to that. So I have quite a bit of aircraft in Singapore. First off, I'm more or less standing my torpedo bombers down. I'm not going to have the wildebeest or swordfish fly into Mersing because I fully expect he's going to have a massive air umbrella over Mersing, or as much as he can get over Mersing, which will basically make these guys sitting ducks. So I've turned these 2 guys down to stand down mode to kind of allow them to repair some of their damaged aircraft, and the one very healthy wildebeest squadron is going to be operating under air search orders. In addition to that, I've ordered my fighters all overhead the shipping. So one of the other reasons I'm not ordering the bombers into Mersing again is I want to have all 48 of my Buffaloes overhead of my my naval task force. So we will have 48 Buffaloes. The Buffalo sucks, but we'll have 48 Buffaloes flying at 25,000 feet, long-range cap over Task Force 43. So hopefully, in the inevitable case where the Japanese do get land-based bombers against these guys, we'll have a large air umbrella over them. In addition to that, we've got some Dutch fighters back here, which will also be providing air cover out of Damjibie, or however you pronounce that. There's an air base here. We've got 11, which I think are Buffaloes as well, based out of this force, and they will be providing air cover as well. They're set to 100%, so they're going to get really fatigued, but that doesn't really matter as much as the fact that they need to be overhead of those ships to hopefully prevent enemy bombers getting through. I don't know how many escorts he's going to be allocating. I don't really think he has a ton of fighters to allocate here. So I believe he pulled all of his zeros out to Formosa to assist in the attacks on the Philippines based on what we've seen the last few turns. He's had enough zeros here to make me think he has no zeros over here. He may have pulled a squadron or 2 back, I'm not sure, But he's going to have to make a decision basically to have a large air force over Mersing or to have a large air force escorting his bombers. In either case, he's going to struggle to deal with 30 or 40 fighters if I can really get that many up over the task force. He's going to struggle to kind of break through. And my hope is I'm not going to shoot down all his bombers, but if I can shoot down enough to disrupt their attack, if they take heavy losses from fighters, that does impact how accurate they can be with their bombs. So my hope is that he puts the majority of his fighters over Mersing, hoping to protect his ships, and that he doesn't as heavily escort his bombers in against me. But we'll see how that plays out. In addition to that, I have some other bombers doing some other things to try and help us. So even though I'm not actually going to be bombing his shipping, I've taken my tactical bombers, which seem to basically be of no use against shipping. They haven't gotten a single hit yet, as far as I can tell. And I'm ordering them to attack Japanese fighters in north here at Kotobaru and at Singora. So I'm ordering basically all of my bombers here, 34 of them, to attack either, I think they're all attacking or mostly attacking, Kotobaru and Singora, which they're going to be doing it at night. See, my thought is because the night turn fires first, they'll be able to get in before the sun rises. They're not going to do much damage, but the hope is that they're able to disrupt operations at the airfield slightly so that maybe he doesn't get quite as many aircraft up. If the airfield takes damage or if there are operations against the airfield, that adds fatigue to the pilots there, so it'll make them less effective. And it also can disrupt the airfield operations and prevent them getting as many birds into the air. So theoretically, if I send a few, these are small formations. We're talking 14, 12, 4, 4. They're going to be doing more harassing operations against Kotobaru and Singora to try and prevent his fighters from getting up. Additionally, I've transferred one bombing group to Far East Command, to ABDA. These guys were in the Philippines, and these 5 bombers are ordered to attack Saigon. I don't know what he has there in terms of fighters. I do know I can bomb Saigon with 5 heavy bombers, airfield attack, during the day, and I was thinking about doing a nighttime raid, but I don't think they'll do enough damage if I attack at night, so we'll do a daytime attack. That may not impact their morning operations against our fleet, but if they launch a second wave, it could impact their ability to get a second wave off. Again, I don't know what the enemy has in terms of fighter cover, but to protect those ships, it's pretty much worth it. And I'm having them come in at 10,000 feet. We kind of have a rule that 4-engine bombers can't go below 10,000 feet, but I'm going to send them in at 10,000 feet level just because the Japanese flak is really bad at this stage in the war, so I'm not too worried about those B-17s being hit too hard. I'm going to see if I can transfer any other B-17s, because I think the majority of his bombers are based out of Saigon. Where is Abda? Where are you? I guess we'll transfer these guys as well. There's only 3 of them, though. Where is that command? Why am I not seeing it on here? Oh, Far East Command. All right, so we'll move them to Far East Command. It's going to cost us some. I looked for other air bases that we could move them to other than Singapore, and there weren't any other bases around here that I could move them to because they require an airfield of at least 5 or larger to launch attacks from. Okay, so these guys, I think we'll send some in at 10,000. We'll send these guys in at 15,000. So kind of stack the raid, 5 coming in at one, 2 coming in at the other. We've only got 3 of them over there. But I'd like to try and get as many of these B-17s out of the Philippines as possible because there inevitably are going to be enemy raids coming against them. I should have condensed these guys into one unit. I don't know if you can do that or not. Is this going to cost 32 political points also? Damn. There's a Force Z command? Oh, it's in China. Never mind. It's a different Force Z. So we can only get some of these bombers out. The others are going to stay back until they're repaired well enough. But once they're repaired, then I'll move the rest over to Singapore as well. All right, so we're going to do a single raid as well for these guys against Saigon. Because, again, I believe that's where the majority of his bombers are based. He could have moved them to Soc Trang, but I think most of them are in Saigon. His air capacity is less. Soc Trang. Saigon is Air Base 5. So if he tries to operate, he'll get major penalties if he tries to operate them anywhere other than either Saigon or Kampong Chhnang. But this is further north, and I don't think he can reach Mersing with torpedoes on his bombers from here. He probably can from Saigon, but I don't think he can do it from here. Kamran also is another option, but again, it's a couple Texas further east, so it's going to be harder for him to reach. So Saigon is really the ideal base for him to launch from, and we're going to do air raids, airfield attacks for all of these. Additionally, it's just inside the normal radius, so they'll all be carrying 8 500-pound bombs instead of their reduced bomb load. So hopefully these guys get off. So an air raid of about 8 bombers against Saigon's airfields hopefully will disrupt operations of his bombers against our own. We don't have very many heavy bombers. It's about the best we can do. I don't know if I want to use more political points. This one only costs 16, but we only have 167 left. Still, I guess we'll do that. The goal objective, obviously, at some point is going to be to form these guys up into a single formation. And they're in good enough shape, so we'll launch them off that way too. All right, so we're going to launch 9 bombers against Saigon. Maybe they'll do some damage. Not sure how much damage I did to that base. He may have fighters up too, but it's kind of the best thing that I can hope for. In addition to those night raids against Singapore and Kota Baru, I also took some Dutch aircraft that I have here and here, and I've ordered them on nighttime raids as well against Saigon. So just a couple of float planes. They actually have reasonable bomb loads. They carry 4 300-kilogram bombs, and they're going to be going after, although this will be extended range, so they'll be carrying just 2 of those bombs, half the bomb load. They're going to be going after Saigon as well, attacking Saigon at night. So hopefully, again, and there'll probably only be 4 or 5 of them attacking Saigon, but the intention is to disrupt his air operations as much as possible and play a positive impact. In addition to that, last turn I detached 1 squadron of the Flying Tigers and added them to Abda. So we've got 22 P-40s, and I've tried to move them further down the peninsula, but they're not quite close enough to be able to play a role at Mersing. But what they can do is they can kind of basically launch strafing raids against Singora and his fighters located here. So hopefully, again, more disruption against the Japanese air bases in the north, which should cut down on fighter support. Because the only fighters that can escort his bombers all the way to Mersing probably are Zeros, maybe Oscars, but Oscars or Zeros. He doesn't have a ton of those. The other thing is I'm not even sure if his Ki-43s, his Nates, kind of the backbone of his fighter force, can even reach Mersing because they're much shorter ranged aircraft. And they can reach Mersing for sure, like in an escort mission, but I don't think they can reach Mersing in a long-range CAP mission. Long-range combat air patrol does not allow your fighter to be in a extended fuel situation. You have to be in your normal radius to operate. And so I'm hoping that means that the only aircraft he'll have over Mersing or actually escorting his bombers against Maing are going to be Oscars or Zeros, and that he only has maybe 10 or 20 of them for us to deal with. Actually, ideally, he doesn't have any. Ideally, he puts those over Mersing, because I don't think he can get his other fighters over Mersing. I don't think he can get his Ki-43s over Mersing. I think all he can get over Mersing are Oscars and Zeros, and again, that means he'd then have to split, between... He's probably got like 60 fighters in region total that can reach Mersing, and if he has to split them, maybe he puts 40 over this and 20 over supporting the raids, maybe less. I don't know. We'll see. What I'd be interested with is anybody knows the game Well, his carriers are way far away still. I don't think we have to worry about his aircraft carriers. I'm pretty sure his aircraft carriers are just to the west of Johnston Island. It's just 5 days since Pearl Harbor, and he's been kind of keeping him around in this area, so I don't think they're a threat. Before we move on to the American side of things, though, if any of you know the game well enough, I guess the one question I have is I'm assuming his torpedo bombers are going to come in at low altitude. Does it matter where we have ours based? And what I mean by that, our fighters based, what I mean by that is I've got my Buffalo set to 25,000 feet, hopefully, so they don't get essentially bounced all the time, and they may still get bounced because Japanese fighters can fly higher, but so that they fight a little bit better against the enemy. But my concern is that if his dive bombers are down at like 10,000 feet, are they going to get a jump on my fighters, or how does that work? The other thing is these guys get a huge maneuver penalty above 20,000 feet. So maybe it's not a good idea to leave these guys flying high. Maybe we should have them at lower altitude. I know it gives the Japanese a huge speed advantage, but I'd rather not get penalized too much. But I'm assuming these guys would dive down to wherever their bombers are and then get back into this normal radius of where they're more maneuverable. I'm not really sure. But it'd be interesting what you guys think, if any of you know the game well enough for me to understand that. Let's see, our top speed is 300 I guess that's the question, is what's the optimal, if we think, I think the majority of the aircraft that are going to be going against us are going to be GM3s or GM4s. To drop torpedoes, they're going to be at lower altitude. I'm assuming he'll set them to around 10,000, maybe 9,000. They'll presumably dive when they actually attack. But where should our fighters be to intercept that, with the understanding that there likely will be enemy fighter escorts as well? I'm just, and from this altitude thing, it's more of a mechanic of how the game works. I'm not necessarily asking for, again, I don't know how it works in real life, but my concern is more about how the game handles it. Does anybody know? You think 15,000 feet. I think they were at 20,000 last time and they were getting bounced. Ugh, I just don't know. I did send Belugan a PM because I know he probably would know, but he hasn't responded. He's probably busy today, I would guess. I could probably stagger the altitude, but I also don't want to necessarily hurt myself. Let's see. And, you know, the sad thing is the Discord, the Matrix Discord, there's a whole bunch of people online, but nobody actually responding to any questions. I think we're just going to set these all to 20,000 maybe. I'm not sure. The problem is I know they're going to get bounced, and that gives them, they're going to get shot to pieces if they're bounced. But the flip side of that is there's a pretty big maneuver penalty to go above 20,000 feet with these things. I guess I could save that later and maybe decide off stream. So we'll see. With that being said, I'll set them all to 20,000 for now. In addition to that, I'm debating moving some additional fighters. So we've got another 10 fighter aircraft here on the island of Borneo, here on the northwest corner. The problem is they can't reach Mersing from here. They can if we move them to Djambi, or however you pronounce that. But the problem is it's only a level 1 airfield, which I believe means it has a stack limit of 50 fighters, which is fine. We'll be below the 50. But I'm assuming there will be a penalty there if we move the fighters in, because we're going to have more aviation support required than we'll have aviation personnel to provide it. Right now, we're perfectly matched 11 aircraft to 11 support, which means they should be operating at perfect efficiency. I'm just not sure if adding an extra 10 aircraft is worth whatever the penalty will be. I'm not sure if the penalty is in actual operations or if the penalty is just in ability to maintain the aircraft. I'm not really sure about that. But we'll have to kind of live with that. Singapore is already above the stack limit, so it's already getting penalized because it has over 141 aircraft for only 107. So maybe actually it'll be okay because they've been operating that way pretty effectively. But that's kind of the situation right now in the theater. As we're going to have anywhere between 59 to 70 aircraft over our ships, at least in theory. They probably won't all be there at one time, but hopefully we can keep at least 30 or so aircraft above at any one time. And then hopefully our raids against his bombers at Saigon and his fighters at Singapore and Kota Bru have an impact and cause him to not be able to effectively get up fighters or bombers so that it kind of breaks his attacks up. If worst case scenario, I guess, is that we do have a pretty heavy anti-aircraft battery here, 2,798 anti-aircraft points, but we just have to hope that we can survive. Again, if one of the ships gets sunk, I'd prefer it to be repulse. But if we lose a battleship, as long as we inflict some damage on them, I guess I'm okay. I toyed around with spending a day of kind of approaching Singapore and hoping he doesn't spot me and doesn't attack me so we can for sure get in closer. But at the end of the day, we've got to travel about 6 hexes further, 7 if you include the one we're in. I don't know. But we're basically only going to have enough fuel to do this once because we're burning it, basically. I had my original base set back to Surabaya or whatever back in Java, and they won't have enough fuel to get back there. So they're going to sprint out there, and then they're going to fall back on Palembang, and they'll draw some fuel from the port there, port level 4, so or maybe Singapore or somewhere. They're going to draw fuel from somewhere, which is fine. These guys are gas guzzlers, and you spend a lot of fuel by sprinting around, but frankly, this is all fuel that's going to be in Japanese hands at some point or another anyway. So I'm perfectly happy with kind of pulling some fuel and spending it and denying it to the Japanese. And those on that note, I'm actually going to create a task force here of tankers out of Singapore, and we're going to load these guys up with fuel, and then we're going to send them south to Australia. We'll need the fuel in Australia when our operations move that way, and if we can pull 30,000 fuel out of Singapore and deny it to the Japanese, all the better. If he wants to sink us with his aircraft or whatever, again, he's just sinking fuel that he won't be getting. You can see there's 110 fuel in Singapore. And that's kind of the situation in Malaya. If we looked in China, we saw we successfully took this city up here and drove the Japanese back. So that's good. I wonder if we can move to Luchao and try and take that. Be a real pain in the ass for the Japanese. These guys have not even gotten going. We also moved a unit here between Hankow and Xinyang. They're going to bombard or maybe deliberate attack the enemy this turn, just to see how strong this force is. We've got more troops on the way, but there's a chance we can cut off Xinyang if we can knock these guys out of line. I don't anticipate doing that, but if they're small units, we might be able to. In addition, the attack near Yicheng cost a lot of casualties. Supply is starting to become an issue there, but we still have 3 units in relatively good shape. These guys are going to stand down and rest. They only have a shock value of 4, so I guess they'll just defend. Oh, wait, no, rest. I can't set them to rest. Whatever, they'll defend. The rest of these corps will assist, and we'll see if we can drive them back and take Yicheng. If we can't yet, we've got a shit ton more troops on the way. We've got 2 corps coming in from the north. They'll probably be arriving in about a week. We've got a corps here off to the west. They'll be arriving in maybe a week. We've got 2 other corps off here to the east. They'll be arriving south of Yicheng in a few days. So if he doesn't pull back here, he's going to be in some trouble. I don't think he's in great shape there. Meanwhile, we're launching some direct attacks up here in our Pao Tao.
against these forces. They seem somewhat weak, but they may be able to hold us back. But we're doing deliberate attacks because you lose less casualties with those. They're more, they're less shocking, if you will, but they're more, they're more reserved. You're less likely to have huge positive impacts. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, Manila was bombed. Not too badly. The air base is actually still in good shape, but the fighters were just ravaged here. We've only got 6 Warhawks left in good standing. What have these guys been fighting at? 16,000. I'm assuming they keep getting bounced. Let's set all fighters to 21. What's this aircraft's data? Wow, these guys are even worse at 21,000 feet. The P-40 is even worse. The Buffalo is actually better at all. It's completely more maneuverable. Let's shut these guys and move them up to full cap. The fatigue level's pretty low, so we'll just set all fighters to full cap over Manila. In case he comes back, it's our only really operational airfield at the moment. He can bomb Clark Field to his heart's content. We're not going to get it repaired again. Okay. And I don't think any of these guys are going to get off. Why do we have an O? Is that a transport? What was that O-47? Is that recon? Huh. Interesting. All right. So we've got all those aircraft up there. Do we have anything else around here? 12 Stearman 75s. These are just biplanes. They can't really do anything. They're training aircraft. I thought we had a B-17 somewhere. We do. The 19th. These heavy bombers. Oh, they're already transferred. They've already changed their headquarters because we changed the headquarter unit. So I guess that changed the rest of the formation. So move them over to here to Singapore. They'll sub-combine. With who? I don't know who they just sub-combined with. You can see here, none of the other B-17s can move yet. They're all damaged. Who did they combine with over here? Might have 10 bombers going in on a raid. I guess the headquarters unit there. Yeah, okay. So any, more loads of bombs is always a good thing. Again, probably not enough bombers there to do a serious amount of damage, but enough to maybe inconvenience them slightly. He's got ashore and taken 2 bases in the north of the Philippines as well as in the south. Our troops have started to fall back inward. I'd rather these guys all move to Clark Field because I think from Clark they retreat to Bataan. But we can just start moving some of these guys directly to Bataan so they could kind of rest and dig in there. 41st, was it? Some of the units, meanwhile, will stay in Manila as sort of a defense against the enemy troops to the south. Mainly just as a delaying action so he can't just sprint in because there's really good roads between where he landed in the south and Manila. So we'll keep a scratch force in Manila there. We probably should move the headquarter unit too. That's a lot of support. That support will be needed to help. Why can't they move there? Did it say unable to move? Oh, okay. You don't need to move directly. I don't care about that. Meanwhile, Bataan building up a fortification there. It's up to 2 forts, 15% build. Singapore, meanwhile, just built its first fort, and it's building another. It's going to build up as much as we can until he gets there. All of these troops in the north have been ordered to retreat to the south. We've got about 3 brigades or about 400 AV that are kind of not in cities. And if Mersing does fall, we'll probably have about 3 brigades worth of combat troops cut off. We won't be able to get back in time. We will get some troops out in time, though. These guys are all switching over to strategic move, and they're moving to Singapore, which means they're going to move to Singapore by rail. So like this battalion of infantry, all these guys should get out. It's going to take them probably 3 or 4 days to get to the coast. Our troops should be able to get through there via rail before then. We've already moved some units. So that battalion should be able to escape. I think there's a brigade somewhere up here. The 15th Indian Brigade should be able to escape as well. So, ideally, we'll still have a strong enough force to hang out for a while in Singapore and defend against the Japanese onslaught. You can see here they're all in combat. All these guys should be preparing for Singapore. They fight much more effectively if they're preparing for Singapore. So some of these guys are already set to that. Right now we've got about 233 assault strength in Singapore, but we also have some additional troops to the north here at Johor Bahru. We should move these base forces back with their aviation support. I don't really have any aircraft up there. Well, we could use the extra aviation support. All right, those guys should get their next turn. These guys will take probably 2 days. So we've got another brigade further north here, and the troops in Mersing also should be able to retreat as well, so there's another brigade there. So we've got 2 additional brigades. We probably have about 600 defensive strength here in Singapore once he does break through. So that's the situation there. Now, there's one other big thing I did want to call out. Let's see here. The one other thing I did want to call out was that the Japanese did land and take Canton Island. Now, that's a bit concerning. I don't know if there's a strat map we can look at. I don't know how to zoom. I don't think I can zoom out. There is a way to view a strategic map. But, oh, weather, by the way. It's going to be overcast, so that might actually help our task force, because it's going to be overcast over here, and that's good. So hopefully the cloud cover prevents his bombers from being able to as effectively hit our ships. You know, it is in the malaria zone. It is in sort of heavy overcast zone, so maybe that will prevent him from being able to effectively hit our ships from the air. You never know, the thunderstorms can happen. Maybe his aircraft will get grounded. In any event, so he took Canton Island, which is a little bit concerning for me, because it does put him close to astride our supply line to Australia. It does put some concerns that he's super aggressive, right? Like he could land on Christmas Island or on Palmyra or on Johnston Island or on Midway Island. He just took Wake Island a few turns ago. So for all we know, he's moving in for an assault on Pearl Harbor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try as quickly as I can, and it's going to take some time, to build up some defenses on Johnston Island, Palmyra, Christmas Island, and then swing west and build up some defenses on Pago Pago, which has a good anchorage, Savai, and then Suva, as well as potentially into Nomaya. So I want to have these bases, Nomaya, Suva, Savai, Pago Pago, mainly because of the anchorage, and then Christmas Island and Palmyra Island, and maybe to a lesser extent Johnston Island. I don't think I'm going to reinforce Midway Island. One, I'm not sure he'd be foolish enough to attack that. That feels like it would be a little bit overly aggressive. 2, Midway's so far away from Pearl Harbor. It's kind of up here on its own in the north. There's really nothing around Midway. So it's really not much of a threat. It's not really an effective staging ground for an invasion of the West Coast, which he'd be crazy to attempt. It's not really an effective staging ground for Pearl Harbor. It is so far from Pearl Harbor. I think some of his flying boats might be able to get recon on Pearl, but that's about it. So I'm not too worried about Midway. I don't think he'll attack Midway. Johnston is much more near and would be a bigger risk if he was to land there. So I'm going to immediately start having some troops prep for Johnston Island, Palmyra Island, Christmas Island, and then maybe should do Tahiti down here to the east. We didn't do Tahiti, though. And then Pago Pago, Savai, Suva, and Nomaya. And then obviously that brings us into the Philippines. So my objective is going to be to kind of reinforce those areas. I actually already have troops on the way to reinforce Fiji. The game has about 1,000 soldiers of ours with some equipment. A coastal artillery battery is going to be moving into Suva, as well as some engineers. In addition to that, we've already got about 90 strength garrisons here, 2 battalions of infantry and a base force. As well as another battalion of infantry and a base force to the west here. So Fiji seems like a good place. It has a level 7 airfield, so you can build strategic bombers out. It has a level 3 port. Fiji, and then Pago Pago has a level 4 port and already has a level 2 airfield. So those seem like kind of natural places to set up some defenses. I've started having some troops prepare for those objectives. We're not going to move them quite yet, but we've got some troops already assigned to the Pacific Fleet with some heavy reinforcements also in the United States that should be able to assist in moving as well. So we've got quite a few, a couple of the 2nd Marine Defense Battalion, for example, is preparing from Pago Pago. That's the way the game started. And then we've got, what else do we have here? Amphibious Corps. I think San Francisco has the bulk of the rest, where we don't have to pay for any of these guys. So we've got 2 infantry regiments in San Francisco that can prepare for some of those bases. And somewhere around here there's a Marine regiment. Is that in San Diego? The 8th Marine Regiment also is preparing for, I don't even remember where that base is. Vauva. Somewhere over here. Is that here? No. Where is Vauva? Oh, down here. Mainly because it has good port and air capacity. So basically I'm going to try and build a ring of forts to kind of limit his eventual conquest. He's got a lot of other things to conquer before he gets down there. And places like Nauru Island, Ocean Island, they've got garrisons. Rabaul has garrisons and aircraft bombers based out of it. But if he's going to be super aggressive and send troops all the way out to Canton, then we're going to build up Christmas Island. We're going to build up some of these islands down here in the Samoas to be able to counterattack Canton. And we've actually already got like a cruiser and some troop transports over this way and what have you. In addition to that, my carriers are heading east, so away, or northeast, so away from what I think is his carrier task force over here. So my carriers are going to head north and then west back into Pearl Harbor. And they're going to meet up with the Saratoga, which is coming in from California. And once we have those 3 carriers, then I think we'll probably move those carriers to Australia or somewhere out that direction where I think there'll be more use. Again, Pearl Harbor is kind of on its own in the middle of nowhere right now, so I'm not as worried about Pearl itself. Australia, meanwhile, it's got a lot of troops there, but they're all pretty much restricted, so we can't do much with them. Well, there's actually some nice forces here. So we may have to think about like how we want to defend the Celebes, the Krarum Sea, or Borneo, or anything like that. He does have more ships over here near Battleabop, so I'm not sure what he's going to do with those. But mainly I just need to figure out what to do with my fighter altitudes and what I need to do with this adding more fighters to this base. And I think that is... there are overview screens, by the way, so I can like see aircraft by bases up here in a long spreadsheet type environment too, and I can filter by bases, and I can do that with task forces too, and see where they are and what their orders are. But I think this will be a big turn. So the Battle of Mersing has already been, frankly, even if he lands here, a pretty big blow to the Japanese. We're claiming Haruna sunk. We're claiming Congo damaged. We're claiming a cargo ship sunk and a destroyer transport sunk. We're having a large surface force move in against them. We'll see how that all plays out. The good thing is these ships have radar. The bad thing is they're not as good at night. The British ships are actually reasonably good at night. The American ships are not. The Dutch ships are terrible at night fighting. The Japanese are good. So we'll see how that all plays out. My hope is that we catch them napping and they're kind of sitting in the port here, anchored, unloading supplies, and that we get them that way. Or frankly, that our Admiral disobeys orders and kind of goes out and strikes one of the actual convoys that still has troops on it before they can get ashore. We'll have a lot of aircraft trying to maintain cover over Force 43, but I have no doubt that we will lose some ships, maybe even the battleships. Frankly, they're going to go for the battleships as their primary target. So I don't think... Barring catastrophe, I don't think the air combat would wipe out this whole force. I think the destroyers would probably get away, maybe the light cruisers. I would assume his aircraft would focus on the heavy cruisers, the heavy cruiser and the battle cruisers. But we'll see. We've got a super aggressive Admiral moving in. We've got a bunch of spoiling attacks on all these air bases around here, hopefully diminishing the amount of aircraft that he can get off against our task forces. I wish I had submarines in place. I don't. They're rushing to get there, but they're not in place yet. So some of these guys are going to go up near Khotan. Some of these guys are rushing to Mersing, but they're not going to get there in time. Still, the Dutch subs have good torpedoes, so they might be able to do something. If we do lose this whole force, we will have some left over to defend the Dutch East Indies. We've got 2 British heavy cruisers and 2 light cruisers coming south to reinforce whatever is left of this force up here after the battle. We also have some 4 or 5 American destroyers near Borneo. We've got additional forces, I think 3 light cruisers and 7 destroyers in Java with the Dutch. So we've got assets. Certainly nothing overwhelming. This is our strongest asset, but we've got other assets around here. Apparently, the Fiji class over here, which is for whatever reason under repair over here, has radar and torpedoes. So man, this would have been the Mauritius would have been a really good ship to have. The Durban as well. The 3 light cruisers we have. Man, if I had them with my force, I'd have 3 more radars and a bunch more torpedoes. It's too bad they weren't part of that task force. But in any event. So we'll see how this all plays out. Guys, that's going to do it for this stream and this episode. It's a little bit longer than the previous ones. We'll go ahead and save it here. I'll do a little bit more research on what to set the altitude to on those buffaloes, and then I'll send it over to XTRG, and we'll see the combat results probably in the next day or two whenever he has time to stream and actually throw everything together. Until then, though, guys, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you once again for tuning in. I'll check with the chat and kind of see if you guys have any additional questions, but we'll probably end the stream here otherwise. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.